welcome to the finale of The Right Crowd, a virtual author expo. I am so excited to present to you the panelists on the Literature for Life panel. And I am here with Laura Lyles Reagan and Pino Shah, and they are going to share their works, their insight, their literary information. And I'm so excited for the conversations we're going to get into. And another panelist that should be joining us is Dr. Clark von Heller, and he may be having technical issues. I hope he can jump on, but the second that he's arrived, I'll bring him up on screen and we'll get going from there, but we make it work. So this is the finale of The Right Crowd, and we are absolutely ending on a high note. Laura and Pino, I admire you both so very much. You have so many books out, and you create such, genuine content of, I'm trying to find the right word in just terms of its quality content that can be digested by, so many different realms. And it's just, I admire you both so very much. And I appreciate all of your support throughout this event. And I'm so happy to have you here sharing your work and your content. And I'm excited to jump into the conversations we'll be having. But this is the finale of The Right Crowd. So to anyone on Facebook and YouTube, I see our numbers climbing. Hello, feel free to drop a comment, say hello. This is a Q&A based panel. So if you have any questions for the panelists, feel free to ask a question and I can bring it up on screen. We can engage, interact, have a fun time, and I encourage you to do so. But to anyone who has been watching The Right Crowd from the very beginning, you hopped on and joined a few, maybe this is your first one. Thank you for making this event such a success. As of this point in time, The Right Crowd has reached 3.7 thousand people on Facebook, which is insane. And we are ending with 16 panels with about 50 panelists that have come on to share their books or literary insight or just a special guest talking about fiction and fantasy. And it's been absolutely wonderful. And again, I thank everyone who's tuned in, every single panelist who has come to share their stories and insight. I am forever grateful, and this is not the end of The Right Crowd. I hope to do something more with this in the future, and they're always available to rewatch on YouTube and Facebook and my website whenever. But we can go ahead and jump into introductions. Very brief introductions, just a real quick, hi, my name is, and I'm the author of, and then as our Facebook and YouTube numbers begin to climb, we'll get into more in-depth descriptions later. But starting with Miss Laura Lyles Reagan, give a real quick hello, and what are you the author of? What books can we hear from you?
Well, hello, and thank you, Katelynn. You are absolutely an amazing inspiration to all of us with your debut book and all that you've done for the writing community, particularly in the Rio Grande Valley, but now globally. So we're just thrilled to be a part of your playground. My debut book was How to Raise Respectful Parents, Better Communication for Teen and Parent Relationships. I'm a sociologist, a parent and teen relationship coach, and obviously an author. I've been blessed to have the book awarded. I've also been a part of 2 mom anthologies. One was about teens, Lose the Cape, Ain't Nothing But a Teen Thing. And the other one was about social engagement for moms and how to help their little ones become socially engaged as well. And then I recently released an ebook called The Quick Start Guide to Grant Writing for Authors and Coaches, because I've been able to do some funding for my writing, which I would love to share with your audience as well. So thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this.
Thank you very much for being here and showcasing all of your works and books. I'm incredibly excited to get into conversations with you. And Pino Shah, tell us a little bit about, real quick, hello, and what are you the author of?
Well, first of all, thank you, Katelynn, for putting this mammoth series of events together. And you've done an incredible job at it, single-handedly. So I appreciate you making me a part of it. My name is Pino Shah. It's Deval Shah, but Pino is a lot simpler. So I go by Pino Shah. I'm a World Heritage photographer, and that's a fancy title for someone that takes pictures of historic architecture or architecture that's of cultural, historical, or just architectural significance. And I share that through books that are visual, 70% visual, 30% text. And I've got books that I've done on the Valley and books on other places around the world. So that's a nutshell version of what I do.
Thank you very much. And we do have some comments coming in. Raul Martinez Jr. says, hi again, Katelynn. Hi, Pino. Hi, Laura. Hi, Raul. Thank you for being a top fan. Thank you for tuning in. And Jackie Smith, who was a previous panelist on the panel just before this at 2, says, Katelynn, you are a rock star. No, wait, you're a superhero. I love you, Jackie.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amen.
And again, to anyone on Facebook or YouTube, say hi, drop a comment, leave a like, ask questions. This is going to be as interactive and engaging as we can possibly make it be. But now that our Facebook numbers have risen and YouTube numbers have risen, I can see here, we can go ahead and jump into more in-depth descriptions. Ms. Laura Lyles Reagan, tell us a little bit about yourself on the professional side, the personal side, and maybe a bit more about what your books are about. The floor is yours.
Oh, very kind. And a shout out to Raul. He is so supportive of authors in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas. And we're just grateful to have him be a part of this community and can't wait for his own writing to premiere as well. So we look forward to that. I've, always had a book in me. It was something that I very much wanted to do. The question was, what would I write? And as a sociologist, I have been very interested in family communication dynamics. As a mom, I've certainly been interested in it. I have failed many times and struggled many times and questioned often, is my parenting right for my girls? I have 2 young adult daughters now. And in getting my master's at UTRGV, I was able to look at communication dynamics in a new way. And one of the great power disparities is the relationship between parent and child. And I wanted to facilitate teen voices being heard. So often, at least when I was growing up, it wasn't just kids were seen but not heard. It was that kids just really didn't have the communication skills they needed to express what was inside of them, what their souls had to offer. And so I did a lot of study on communication. I also joined other people in the parenting movement. There's a movement called conscious parenting, and it's all about bringing equilibrium to that relationship so that all voices are heard. And that's something that's certainly needed in our world right now. And so it's quite relevant. And I was very blessed to have this book debut, well and be received. It's actually written to young adults, which is interesting. Some people think it's a parenting book, and in a way it is. It's sort of for voyeuristic parents that are looking over their teen shoulder, but it's to help teens find their voice inside of that parent-teen relationship. And there's exercises at the end of each chapter that the parent and the teen can work on together to improve communication and make it more egalitarian. And then because of that book, I got an invitation to participate in 2 different anthologies that I shared about. It's a series called Lose the Cape, meaning moms that have that superhero syndrome that we have to be super women, all things to all people, and then we feel like we're failures because we can't do that. It's not it's not human to be a superhero. So it's about giving ourselves permission to be present in the moment, as conscious as we can, but to also invite that co-creative relationship with our teens so that it's a we thing, not a me thing, and that makes for happier homes, quite frankly. So it's been fun to be a part of this community of mom authors that I've been blessed to be a part of, and that just continues to grow. And I've developed a coaching practice out of it that is kind of an author entrepreneurial experience. And some of the writers maybe listening to your to these whole series are looking for ways not only to get their words out there and get their heart message out there, but also to make a little money. There's, if you think entrepreneurially, and we can talk about this more as we go on in our discussion, it's been quite a journey for me to find ways to make money as an author. And I just want to say here, it is possible. I don't know that kids are getting that message in school, that you can write and have that be a career. But it is truly possible. You can share both your heart and find an audience and money-making possibilities for it. And the reason that was so important to me was there was a period of my life where I was a single mom, and so wanting to work from my heart, but knowing that the reality is we live in a world that requires monetary sustenance meant that I had to, find creative ways to make that happen. So my journey has been twofold. It's been about sharing that heart message and that information about teen and parent relationships and better communication, but it's been also finding ways to be an entrepreneur.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah.
And Pino Shah, tell us a little bit about yourself, professional, personal, more in-depth descriptions of what you write about. The floor is yours to share.
Okay, thank you. So my background is information technology and digital online media, and that's what my primary career has been. Back in 2016, I had a life choice to make as to where I wanted to settle. And I had previously lived in the Valley and moved away from the Valley several times because of work. And so 2016, when I had to decide, essentially for the rest of my life where I wanted to be, it took me about a week of prayer and contemplation, and the answer was go back to the Valley, and because I find the Valley to be an amazing place, because there's so much that it offers. It's like we're in the twilight zone, having the best of both worlds, the Anglo culture, the Mexican or the Latin culture. And so I moved back to the Valley, and I was kind of burnt out from doing the IT work, working 70 hours a week, and photography has always been a passion for me. And so I said, let me pursue photography for a while. I didn't give up the IT work completely because as Laura pointed out, you have to kind of balance, the monetary sustenance with what your passion is. So I continued the IT work, but focused more and more of my time on the photography aspect of things. And one of the things I started looking for was if there was any visual material on the historic architecture of the Valley. So there are quite a few great books by some great authors out there, but they're mostly text oriented. Now, speaking for myself, when I look at a book, I prefer to look at visual material than purely text. So my target audience being the younger generation, because those are the folks, or those are the young minds upon whom I want to impress what our region has to offer, I decided to go the visual route. And I didn't find any such visual material on the Valley. So that got me thinking, saying, why don't I try to create something? So it first started out as just 30 buildings across the Valley that were supposed to be of architectural, cultural, or historical significance. But soon, thanks to several individuals that pointed me in the right direction, that list grew to 550 buildings. So over the past 4 years, I've photographed 425 of those buildings. I still have 125 more to do.
Wow.
And once all those 550 are photographed, that would be a very comprehensive reference document for future generations to look at in one place and look and understand the entire 4-border county region of the lower Rio Grande Valley. Okay. And my hope is that down the road, I also am able to collaborate with people that are conversant in history that can then lend themselves to my work and show the prominent role that each one of those structures has played in the region's history. Okay. And my prayers have always been that I also have an educational collaboration that happens so that in our local school districts, we come up with a TEKS compliant curriculum that teaches them about the history of the lower Rio Grande Valley. Because, God only knows how much we've gone through. We used to be Mexico once upon a time,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I've heard someone say this. I don't know if it is a dialogue from a movie or someone has actually written this, but they said, we didn't cross the border crossed us, and that is very true. So now, when I was previously living in the Valley for 22 years, I never appreciated all of this because, again, I never was aware of it until I moved away from the Valley, lived in different places, traveled different places around the world. It made me appreciate how much diversity we have in our architecture down here. I mean, there is maybe 30 different architectural styles. There are 30 different architectural styles, at least, down here in the Valley. And most people are not aware of it because no one really promotes the Valley as a whole, as a tourism destination. Each city does its own thing and does it well. Some do it more well than others, but no one really promotes the Valley as a whole. And my goal is to, once all those 550 are done, put them online and make it a virtual showcase for the rest of the world to see what the Valley is all about. Okay, so based on the work I've done to date, I created my first book, which was actually on Quinta Mazatlan, which is, along with the Casa de Palmas Hotel, downtown McAllen, I consider it to be amongst the two real treasures or jewels of McAllen. Okay, and if you have absolutely one place that you should see if you come to McAllen and only have limited time, I would say it has to be Quinta Mazatlan. Okay, it's across from the airport. People that work at the airport, that have worked at the airport for 10 years, they don't know what Quinta Mazatlan is. And that is really a sorry state of affairs, okay, because it's literally a walk from the airport. So my first book with Eileen Mate, who's a very well-known writer from Harlingen, was on Quinta Mazatlan. The second book is The Architecture of the Lower Rio Grande Valley. So the gentleman who's helped me come up with the list, because often I get asked the question, well, how did you decide on the 550 buildings? Well, I didn't, but there's a gentleman by the name of Stephen Fox. He teaches at Rice University, the School of Architecture. He's an architectural historian for the state of Texas. And based on his years of research, he's originally a Brownsville native. He lives in Houston. He gave me the list of the 550 buildings that he felt met that criteria. So that's the list I'm following. And he's kind of like an advisor to my project. So the second book I did it's called The Architecture of the Lower Rio Grande Valley, an Introduction. Because I told him, I said, Stephen, look, it may be years before I get all 550 photographed and the book done. I said, in the meantime, I said, I'd like to have an appetizer version that I can just, tease people's minds with or make them aware. So I said, can you come up with a handful of buildings that represent the diverse styles? So he did. And not only did he do that, he was gracious enough to actually write all the narratives for those 40 buildings. Okay. So that was the second book. The third book, again, back to Eileen. She was gracious in working with me, and we wrote the book that highlights the top 100 buildings of Brownsville. Now, Brownsville is the most historic city in terms of preservation in the Lower Rio Grande Valley. They've managed to preserve their buildings. So Stephen gave us a list of like 142. And out of the 142, we narrowed it down to 100. And Eileen wrote the narrations for that. And that was the third book on the Valley. The fourth book, Jeff Alger, who's a McAllen-based historian, he wrote the narrations for it. And that highlights the architectural and historical and culturally significant buildings of McAllen. So that is the journey of McAllen. So those are the 4 books on the Valley. And then I've got 3 other books, one on Galveston, highlighting the top 100 buildings of Galveston. Another book of a place in Abu Dhabi, Middle East. It's the world's 3rd biggest mosque. And I happened to visit there, and I was impressed by this building. And I decided to do a book on that. And then the 7th book that I came out with earlier this year is on India's first World Heritage City. It's called Ahmedabad, which is a 609-year-old city where I originally am from. And so they became a World Heritage City last year or the year before. And for the last 10 years, I've been photographing the city. And so this year, I went ahead and released the book, which is my biggest work because it took me 10 years to, do that particular book. So that's where I'm at now.
Thank you very much. And, for the Literature for Life panel, I wanted to tackle this from different perspectives, we have books and we have literature and all sorts of things, but I wanted like literature for life, like in the sense, Miss Laura Reagan, you write, for life practicality in terms of, parents and teens and that kind of thing. And with your sociology and all those sorts of things, you bring it together in literary form that people can read and share and digest and understand. And you're helping and you're impacting through the written word. It's literature for life. And with Pino Shah, you bring these cultural significances and historical significances, and you put them into a tangible way that you can share this information, share this culture, share the beauty of so many places, especially, the lower Rio Grande Valley. You're giving us amazing recognition and amazing representation of these, buildings. There's history. It's rich. It's diverse, and this, you both bring literature to life and literature for life in different aspects. And I'm very, very happy that you're here to share your work and, offer insight of how you began, stories along the way. And that leads me to my first question of, we've got Rio Grande Valley representation here. I myself am tuning in from Harlingen, but Miss Laura Reagan, where are you tuning in from?
I'm living currently in Laguna Vista. But excuse me, I'm an Edinburgh High School graduate and also got my master's at UTRGV. So I've been a Valley girl, moved away and come back. I moved away and come back. Very, very similar to Pino. I'm here for heart reasons. One of the places I got to live was Mexico City. And so it was really imperative for me to have a good translation of that, of my book, How to Raise Respectful Parents. And so with the help of Julieta Corpus, who's a Valley poet, on probably part of your panels, she translated my book for me, Cómo Criar Padres Respetuosos. And one of the thrills for me has been that it has been embraced by moms who were taking their GEDs and doing their English as a secondary language study and getting that, credentialing. And they've been able to take it to Colombia, Mexico City, all over the place. So it's been really, really exciting what Pino was sharing about, the diversity of the Rio Grande Valley is absolutely amazing. We think of the Rio Grande Valley, and should as 80% Latino, but the truth is all of the Americas pass through, in terms of trade, in terms of culture, information exchange, and it's been a great launching pad for me.
I love it. Thank you. Absolutely. UTHB visa for the Vaqueros. Very nice.
No, the Broncos. I'm sorry, the Broncos.
Well, yeah, the Broncos. Now it's visa for Vaqueros, but before Broncos.
Right.
And Julieta Corpus was a previous panelist on Panel of Poets Volume 2, and she's amazing. I was so very happy to have her. But Pino Shah, where are you tuning in from?
Right now, I'm in McAllen. I've been in McAllen since earlier this year. Usually, I travel a fair bit, but my home base is McAllen.
I love that, the base of operations. Like we're here in McAllen to get it all produced and gone. I love it. Yeah. So my first question for you all is, what made you sit down and, create this content? I know you touched on it a little bit, like in your descriptions and things like that, but what was the intent and purpose of making these happen? Did you know, like the full definitive, I'm going to write this, I'm going to put this together, this is going to become a tangible thing I can share with the world? Or did it manifest in an odd sort of way? It was an idea, then it branched, and now that you're here, what was the path to making all of your titles happen, Miss Laura Reagan?
Thanks for the question. It was quite frankly a journey, right? When I got my master's, I came to the master's degree program as a nonprofit manager. So I had worked in different nonprofits, one for training parents of kids with disabilities, one for with Boys and Girls Clubs of Rio Grande Valley and precisely McAllen. And oftentimes how to impact youth was, a primary focus of my work. I was able to do some original research that was published in the Journal of Applied Social Science that was called Dynamic Duos. So again, it was about that teen and young adult connection. And it's nice in academia to play with ideas, and it's an amazing thing to get research published. And I'm excited that it's actually been quoted by a couple of Valley researchers, so I know that it's been read, but the handful of people that would read that original research is, literally that. It's just 5 to 10 people maybe, and I had no interest in being a professor and going on and getting my doctorate. My whole career's been about field work, and that's how I use the tenets of applied sociology. So I really wanted to do a popular work that was the nexus between my personal journey as a parent and then the research that I was able to do as a sociologist. And that's how the book was born, was just, it's time to speak what had worked for me, because I had been on this path of equality, of making that in my own life, attempting to make an equal stage for my teen daughters and now young adult daughters as that parent. So it was really important to put a popular work together for me. And then it just kind of took off. Once you say, this is who I am in the world, it's amazing the other people that say, yeah, that's like me. I identify with that work, or I need that work, or start asking questions. And then it's sort of a co-creative process in the actual writing of it, but then also in the building of the audience. There were other women who were sharing their journeys in parenting. There were other psychologists that now recommend me as a sociologist, as a coach. So there's been all of this wonderful cross-pollination that's gone on simply by being brave and saying, this is, what I've learned, and this is what I want to share. So I really encourage folks that have not put together that debut book to write, to hang your hat out there and say, this is who I am, because the relationships can then flourish, as you both know, as a result of putting your work out there. And it's a scary, risky thing. When I was first putting it together, I attended a writer's retreat online that was very much a meditative process. And one of the questions the facilitator talked about asked us was, if you were to write your book and only one person read it, would it be worth it? And to me, absolutely, yes, it was worth it to write for this one person, because now it's just, blossomed into a career as a parent and teen relationship coach. And that research as a sociologist morphed into something that could truly be of service. And that was my heart's desire. So thank you.
Very nice. Thank you so very much. And I know Dr. Clark Von Heller has joined us. Hi.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So,
nice to see you all. I just got back from Mexico.
Oh, wow. Thank you for taking the time to join and say hi and come and share.
Great. We're so happy to be here. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did have a question that we were answering right now. So I will have Pino Shah answer the question, and then we can jump back to Clark for you to say all of your introductions and things. So for yourself, Pino Shah, what is the origin of your stories and your works? Either did you know that this was what you were going to do in terms of like the photography and the collections and this, or it was a set goal, or something else happened to kind of trigger it and manifest? And how did this part of your life come to fruition?
So the initial goal, or the scope rather, was just highlighting 30 of the buildings because of the limitations of my own awareness as to what was available in the valley. So I didn't expect at that point in time, that point in time, my goal was, okay, one book, 30 structures, and I'm done. But again, thanks to, the right doors opening, being put in touch with the right people, it's like when I was photographing places and visited Quinta Mazatlan, photographed it extensively, I looked in their gift shop and I didn't notice a book on Quinta Mazatlan. So I asked them, I said, do you guys have a book on Quinta Mazatlan's architecture history? They said, no.
Wow.
We have books on birding, we have books on this, nature. I go, yeah, but the building is of great architectural and historical significance because it's one of the few adobe brick buildings in the state of Texas that's 10,000 square feet or larger.
Wow.
And those bricks were made on site at Quinta Mazatlan. Okay. Each brick weighs 70 pounds. Okay.
Oh my God.
So there is this immense history in there. And I'm like, well, I said, maybe that's something I should look at putting together. So that's why Quinta Mazatlan came first. I mean, my goal was to do this overall book, but along the way, I was like, well, this can't be neglected. This needs to be done. And so from start to finish, thanks to Eileen's diligence and help, we got that book done in about 30 days. Okay, because I already had the pictures, and she had always wanted to do a book on Quinta Mazatlan. And I didn't know her. She didn't know me. But just through, I think, Facebook or through someone knew someone, said, hey, why don't you guys meet? So she and I met at a coffee place. I shared with her what my vision was. And she was like, yeah, let's do a book, So now she gives me a hard time about it. She goes, I've never done a book so fast in my life. Normally it takes a year or longer, for her to do her books. So that's how, when I started, it was one book. And every time I wanted to give up, it's like the Lord would open another door. And it's like, next thing you know, it's like book 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and working on 2 more, which we'll talk about later. And even initially, when I planned this, you know how we have to buy these ISBN numbers, right? So I was like, okay, I need one ISBN number. Well, okay. Next thing I was like, well, I need one for this, one for this. Let me get the 5-pack. Oh, now that is not enough. Now let me get the 10-pack. And I'm like, okay, let's just get 100 and see where we go with this, So that's exactly what's happened. Initially, when I started out, no, I didn't think. And then, of course, what helped along the way was it being received well. And like Laura pointed out, it's usually the handful of people initially that respond to what you're putting out there. But that those are the ones that really appreciate it. And those are the ones that really get it. And it's just their enthusiasm, their support, just made me realize that, no, this is something that needs to be done. And so that's how I kept expanding.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I know for Dr. Clark Von Heller, we had a comment coming in for you from Raul Martinez Jr. saying, Dr. Clark, you made it. Good to see you.
Oh, thank you, Raul.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. Very unprofessional, but it was just unavoidable. The bridge we had to go over this morning. So anyway, so happy to be with you. And could I say, Katelynn, I'm so impressed. I've been stalking your other two guests since we met the other day at dress rehearsal, and I'm just so humbled and proud to be with you guys. And definitely, Mr. Shah, I want to go to your shop because we are very interested in antiques.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh,
Laura,
Good.
impressed with you because what you're giving is something that, if ever our community needed this service, it's now. And so kudos to both of you. And Katelynn, you know how much I love you and follow you. So anyway, that was my apology, and thanks for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you.
You're good. You're 100% fine. I'm so glad that you could take the time and come, and I'm honored to have you. And if you want to give a, tell everyone watching who you are, what you write, the floor is yours to introduce yourself, Dr. Clark Von Heller.
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here from all of our people who are watching around the world. Well, I taught at STC, South Texas College, for many, many years. Also taught at University of Texas, in the old days, Pan American. And my field of interest is language. I love language. I think it's the basis for everything to success in a person's life. And of course, the language that I love the most is English. English is the most powerful language in the world. And I love languages. Let me see if I can find some. Right now, I'm taking a Hebrew class. Let's see if I can. Am I on camera? There you go. Yeah, I'm taking a Hebrew class every Monday night from the Jerusalem, the university in Jerusalem, the big one. And so, so this is exciting. And when in college, I studied Greek. I can read and write Greek, which nobody in their right mind needs, but I use it for my journal, so nobody can decipher it, you know. And so I love languages, the ancient languages in particular, but I really love English because it's so dynamic. For example, we park on a driveway, but we drive on a parkway. It makes no sense. And I hate to use these words, but you know, it can be hot as hell, but guess what? It can also be as cold as hell. And you know that. You know, did you know that in English, you can say, I could care less, or you could say, I couldn't care less, and it means the very same thing.
True.
I couldn't care less if you kissed every boy in the county. I could care less if you kissed every boy in the county. It means the same thing, but you're saying the opposite. Now, can you do that in Hebrew, in Greek, in Spanish, in German, in French? No. But you can in the most popular language in the world, and that's English. And so I've dedicated my life to working here on the border with beautiful and enjoying this English language and hopefully teaching a little bit along the way. In 2007, I became, and I hope this is correct, and if I'm wrong, my deepest apologies, I think I became the first published professor at South Texas College, and it was with ESL Doxography. And my field is, of course, language, so English is a second language. Doxos is a Greek word meaning glory. And of course, graphy is writing. And so this book is an academic book with a lot of research and has been adopted by school districts, both in San Antonio, for their teachers, not the students, for teacher training in San Antonio and San Benito ISD. And it's sold almost 2,000 across the country. So I'm very proud of this one. And it's basically a how to set up a program for ESL, all the way to readability statistics of how to improve your own writing. And so this one was in 2007. And then this one, my favorite book in the world, is the Clarkheller collection. And this one is selected works from a life of writing, including travel journals, because I've had the privilege of venturing to 22 foreign countries. And India is on my list. Mr. Shah, are you from India?
Yes, I am. That's great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Okay, then India is on our list as well. Laura Lynn, you're from where? England? I know where you're from. I'm just kidding. And Katelynn, I know that you're from beautiful Texas. And so anyway, India is definitely on our list to visit. And so this one has poems, dramas, songs, and this is all original. Every last word of the 140,000 words or whatever it is original. This one has sold about 1,200 copies. And it's the same publisher. The publisher for these is Infinity, but my publisher is out of business. And so no more royalties. Okay. The publisher was bought by another publisher. And so as of this point, I haven't heard from them. And so, I mean, they are selling, but because I see it on the internet, but there's no royalties involved. Now, this book, I also have a doctorate in religion. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world. That's why I love the ancient languages, because the Old Testament in the Bible was written in Hebrew, and the New Testament in the Bible was written in Greek. And so when I was a teenager, and this is kind of like that beautiful little Katelynn, she's an accomplished and she's an award-winning author. Well, when I was a teenager, I read every chapter of the Old Testament, and I made copious little notes, and I didn't know that I was going to publish it, but eventually I published it, and I chose to publish it, well, in English and also in Spanish. And this one is the version in Spanish. And this one is also an academic book, has a lot of Hebrew. It uses Aramaic as well, which is a cousin language to Hebrew. And so this is one of my favorite books as well. But this book is not in publication at this time. It's not. I've taken it out of publication because I'm going to revamp the whole thing. It needs to be redone. And so, I want to just quickly, I was going to start with this, but I'm too nervous now that we're on camera. Okay. My very first book in the world, first grade. Isn't it beautiful? I know it's ugly. I'm just playing. But I do want to read you. I'm sure that the teacher put this on the board and we copied it. But here is my first book ever published and my first little poem, which I copied obviously from the teacher. Sing a song of seasons, something bright in all, flowers in the summer and fires in the fall.
Oh.
And autumn has always been my favorite time of year anyway. You see the fires, the houses, and all of this. And so this was my introduction to writing and my very first book. And thank you so much, Katelynn.
Thank you. I love it. I love the fact that you can still like refer
We're
back
having
like
some
the
audio
debut.
problems. I cannot hear. I cannot hear.
Oh no. I think. Okay. Okay.
Uh-oh.
I will continue on. I'll
I'm so
message
sorry.
Clarkheller in the
We're
chat.
having audio problems, and I haven't muted anything.
Let me see. I'm typing
But
to Clark in the chat.
I cannot hear anyone. I cannot hear.
We can hear you fine.
We can hear you, but I typed
I'm
in
so
the
sorry.
chat.
Let me.
No, you're good.
And I see we have chats going on.
Yeah.
Camera and mic. Earlier, it was fine. There was no problem at all.
Let me see. Ooh, okay. He's probably going to leave and then come back in. But for everyone watching on Facebook and YouTube, again, thank you so very much for joining. I'm just so thrilled to have you all here. You all speak to, bringing your literatures into these, culture and then practicality. And it's just so very wonderful. And I know my next question for you all had to deal with, we're meeting here virtually because, we're doing different things in terms of trying to stay safe and stay distanced. And it can be difficult to not be able to meet in person. And it certainly has been, I know, on my end of the spectrum. But, I did want to ask you all, how has our current world situation impacted your own writing career, either in terms of actually producing content? Maybe this is a time to keep going, or, you've had to pull back and focus on other aspects, or do you have other projects that you've been able to put your effort and time into now that we have, we're doing virtual things, we're learning new skills, we're adapting and embracing technology. So starting with Miss Laura Lyles Reagan, how has our current world situation impacted your own author career?
Thanks, Katelynn, for the question. It definitely has impacted things, right? But for me, quite frankly, for the better. And that seems like a really odd thing to say, but it has allowed the coaching career for teens and parents to take off. And so I meet with them by Zoom, and the content that I'm producing for them has to be, relevant to their lives because they're such great need. Right now with COVID, parents and teens are home together so much more. and there tends to be more conflict. So I've been sought after, and I'm very, very grateful for that, and grateful to be of service to them. The other thing that has done is, because I am interacting with my audience, my clients tend to purchase the materials, because they're interested in improving their relationships, that they ask for content. And that's a really great two-way conversation that can happen online, right? One of the things that they've been asking for is how to empower their teens for online learning success, since everyone is having to, do these online lessons or online school. And we've had to look at how to how teens can take control of their learning, whether they are oriented towards introversion or extroversion, whether they like project-based learning, or whether they like solo projects. How to then take that information, that they a little bit of control back, because if we think COVID has been difficult for us, it has been incredibly difficult for teens, because they're very used to interacting with their peers. This is a time in their life where peers are vital, and they're having to do it virtually, or at least in a very limited way. And it's been really, really tough to have to redefine the entire structure of their lives. And so to gain a little bit of control about how they learn is a helpful step in the right direction. So I responded to my audience's needs, and that's something we can do as authors, right? Is having that interaction, whether it be through social media or, in my case with clientele through Zoom, then we can provide content that is helpful to them in real time. And I'm revamping my website right now so that all of this information about online learning success can be available to them.
Oh, neat.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Great.
And for Dr. Heller, how has our current world situation impacted your own writing career or author sphere?
Yeah, it's just turned it all around. But it's really been wonderful though, because it opened up the doors of YouTube. When we entered into this horrible COVID crisis back in January, February, on my YouTube channel, I had exactly 150 subscribers. I remember because I was in Las Vegas when someone asked to subscribe, and I told her, you will be 150. And now it's 600 and I think about 75. But why? I don't know. Because I don't advertise or anything like that. But what my family says is that it's the COVID. People now are going for the hashtag and watching more YouTube videos.
Makes sense.
Very nice. And congratulations on the growth as well, like for the YouTube channel. It's very
great.
nice.
I really love my YouTube channel. It's just amateur. I don't even edit them, but some of them are good for students. And I now have students in Indonesia and England, of course, in Israel, and two other countries, because of a direct result of your question of people being inside. Yep.
Very nice. And Mr. Pino Shah, how has our current world situation impacted your own, writing career and book production and authorship?
I've actually had to put a pause on it, and focus on other things just to continue sustaining, monetary sustenance. So, because so one of the other things I do is I dabble in antiques, a limited handful of antiques. And interestingly, as people got the stimulus check and the unemployment money, that antique business just shot up.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, that's what I need to do right now. So it kind of, spent the last several months working on that, and decided to put my books back, by 6 months, the 2 additional titles that I'm working on, because I didn't feel that at this point, even though the reading, they say the reading, the watching online content, all of that has gone, I just didn't feel that it would be the right time for me, for the kind of books that I produce, that it would be the right time to bring them to market. That people wouldn't be willing to spend money on those at this time. So.
Right.
But it's nice, the fact that we can see productivity elsewhere. It has taken a hit, even for different, we write in different genres. I do fiction, but even then, just the current world situation, it's difficult to find inspiration. And, writing is supposed to be the escape and the ability to dive in. And, if you don't have the motivation to do it, it has taken a blow to multiple authors and creatives in terms of content creation. But finding a different place to put in your effort and be productive in another aspect is really great. And we have a comment coming in from Miss Laura Lyles Reagan from Ro Martinez Jr. saying, Laura, I was passive and withdrawn as a teen, which no doubt frustrated my parents. That's why I wish I'd had access to your Respectful Parents book back then.
Wow.
Right. Thank you, Raul. Thank you, Raul. He read my book and promoted it. He's a wonderful reviewer. And he's been very helpful in getting the word out there for several of us. So I'm very grateful for that. And yes, I think that helping teens honor who they are naturally. We don't need to change who they are. They don't have to become more extroverted if they're introverted, or vice versa. But honoring what they their personality orientation is absolutely vital. And some of those communication skills that I talk about in the book help parents honor teens where they are. It's okay if your teen doesn't want to talk right now. You can truly do side-by-side things, things that are more passive and still stay connected. The point that we want to give our teens is that they're cherished for who they are.
Yes.
I love that so very much. Thank you.
Fantastic.
And my next question for you all is, what is the easiest and or most difficult part about either writing or creating content or putting out the books or, the author career? I know we haven't done as many events and being able to, be in person, distributing the books, showing them to people and having that interaction. But, either from creating the content, either actually writing or finding the, content in order to put it together, or maybe some marketing might be difficult, or maybe you found that's something that you love to do. In the whole realm of book creation and book production and book distribution and, being an author and creator, what are some of the easiest or most difficult aspects, beginning with Laura Reagan?
Thank you. I think probably first and foremost, the hardest thing to do for me was what I call butt in chair time. I tend to be somebody that has a wonderful, lofty ideas, but making myself be disciplined about word count and setting a goal and meeting that to finish a work is something that's really, really important. It's been helpful to me to use book coaches or online marketing coaches, if that's something that I was interested in doing, because that helps with the accountability. I set a goal and they help me meet it. One of the ways I wrote my debut book was to take a trip. I was taking my daughter to California for a training she was doing, and there was a 2-week window, and I said, okay, every day I'm going to write 5,000 words, or it started out 5,000, then it creeped down, it went down to like 3,000 and 250, 2,500, but I still got it done. I got the first rough draft done because I took that trip. Some people don't have that opportunity, and I understand that, but it simply worked for me. And finding the time in the day that works for you. Some people are morning folks, some people are late night folks, to work on the book. So I would say butt in chair time is my hardest thing to do, but I've found some ways to work around that. My second hardest thing to do is online marketing. And I've learned over 5 years that it's a specialty, and I've hired some different people at different times to help me out with that. But it's a daily showing up consistently for your audience and producing, content that gets you seen and heard, that meets people's needs where they are. and it is a tough discipline. I know that, you know, in the Valley, we tend to be a little, well, we're just so social, right? We want to connect face to face.
Yep.
And yet my experience as an author has been more online, you know, doing the online marketing. So as hard as that has been to learn, it's been very rewarding. And I've met people from everywhere as a result of, you know, learning that skill and staying consistent with that skill. So I have a Facebook group of parents that absorb content, and I have a couple of Facebook pages that I daily post in, and it's just this discipline that's kind of become part of my life, just like writing has.
Hello, Katelynn, you there?
Yeah.
The audio went out.
Yeah, Katelynn, we're having trouble hearing you. There's the spaces.
Your internet connection seems to be slow, Katelynn, so your image has just been frozen and your audio is coming in like a little song, you know, one word at a time.
Is this now?
Nope, it's still the same.
I'll act it out.
Well, how about we know what you wanted to ask, so we'll let Pino, would you like to share a little bit about what's hardest for you?
Oh, that's a great
in
idea.
the author journey?
Great idea.
Yeah, so for me, what has been the easiest and the most difficult part of writing or being an author, again, given that my genre is a little different, for me, my challenges have been of a different kind. My projects or my books involve going and photographing buildings, and it's been a challenge to get access many times to the buildings. And
Okay.
yeah, constant. And I'm talking about public buildings. I'm not talking about invasion of privacy or anything of that nature. I'm talking about a building that can be visible, you know, from a public stance and still not getting free access to it like you should. In other words, good example is downtown McAllen bus terminal. You got people standing there taking selfies, people taking pictures with their phones. I show up with my professional camera gear, and the guard comes up to me and tells me I can be taking pictures. You know, and I'm like, number one, this is a public building. It's funded by the city. You've got these people over here taking pictures. Why don't you tell everyone then not to take pictures?
Right.
You know, you do what you are told to do. Don't worry about them.
Makes no sense. Makes no sense.
Yeah. So those kinds of experiences have been more than there should be.
Right.
Second,
have you ever legally challenged it? Pino, have you ever?
Really, in the grand scheme of things, with 550 buildings to do, it's like, you know,
Makes sense.
Yeah, eventually they'll realize that it's something they ought to have been a part of, you know.
Right.
So,
Yep.
And then, but I did follow up, not legally, but I did follow up to the city chain of command.
Okay.
And didn't really get anywhere, you know. So that the other challenge is frequently getting asked the question, who are you with? Who are you and who are you with?
Oh.
And, you know, my answer is I'm a nobody. I mean, I'm a solo person. I'm not coming here from a big corporate entity or a big publisher or something. And I'm not with anybody. I'm just here trying to do this, trying to showcase the valley. This is why I want to photograph this, you know, whatever. So initially it was a little hurtful, painful, but
yes, of course.
Afterwards I kind of got over it because, as an example, when I was doing the book, I've run 2 books on McAllen. One is the Quinta Mazatlan book and the other book on McAllen.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a year trying to get a meeting with the mayor just to show him the book.
Wow.
And it still didn't happen.
Ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it still didn't happen after that.
And it's such a great promotion for the city, for Pete's sake.
I know.
I mean, you
So
would think it'd be
finally,
the opposite.
I just gave up. I said, you know what? I'm determined to do what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue doing it.
Yeah.
Whether the city appreciates it or not, I'm going to do what I need to do. So
Right.
for me, it's been those kinds of challenges. It hasn't really been the question of motivation or, wanting to do it. That's, again, I see that, as I said earlier, the Lord kept opening doors for me whenever I wanted to give up on the book projects.
Mhm.
And somehow he always presents situations that have led me to the next
Wonderful.
book.
Wonderful.
So,
Yeah. That's great. That is great.
Thank
That's
you. And
That's
can you
astounding.
hear me? Can you
Yes,
see me?
Hi, Katelynn.
Yes, we can hear and see you.
Okay. Thank you.
We
I
kind of took over the role of facilitators and we went
Yeah.
on with Pino, so we were just fine.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
glad.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Thank
have
you,
no
Laura
idea what
Lynn.
happened on my end. My internet
That's
began
okay.
to stutter, and then nothing was working. I grabbed our phones have little hotspots, and so my mom's phone is right next to my laptop, giving the life support. So, but
The
we're here.
joy of modern technology.
I know, we just grab and go. But thank you so very much for continuing and keeping it going. I apologize for the
great.
technical difficulties on my end. But
Yeah. Great.
I think another question that I had to continue on from that, and this is more of a fun one that doesn't have to do with writing, is, do you have any other hobbies besides writing, or things that deal with the authorship? I know, like for Pino, you do like photography, World Heritage photography for the books, but I have had the pleasure of meeting up with you and, talking and discussing and working with like fountain pens and typewriters and things, which is such a joy. And I enjoyed it very much. So any hobbies or other things outside of writing that you like to participate and, grow in your skills, Miss Laura Reagan?
Well, actually, I'm envious of Pino. I am privileged to live near water at Laguna Vista in South Padre Island, and it's a great inspirational place to write. But I would love to get into photography and nature photography and all of those things. So we'll have to talk down the road. Yes, that's a great interest of mine. But I also journal. It's something that's just I do for myself personally. As a writer, it just keeps me sharp and helps clear the cobwebs. So that's something positive too.
Very nice. And Dr. Clarkheller, any hobbies that you like to have or participate in?
Ich bin ein Musiker. I'm a musician. I play piano and guitar, and I have those on my YouTube channel. And I love music, and so I write music and all of that stuff. I love music.
Very nice. Thank you. And Mr. Pino Shah, hobbies that you like to partake in outside of the author realm?
This summer it hasn't been possible, but last summer I held 5 classes, 5 Sundays in a row, teaching vegetarian cooking. So, yeah, I'm a vegetarian, born vegetarian, as is 85% of India's population is. Never had meat, never tasted meat, and so I was surprised. Again, it started off as me saying, "Let me do one," because people kept asking for recipes and stuff. I said, "You know what, guys? I'm just going to do a class." I said, "Let me do one." But then there was like demand for another one. Next thing you know, it was like 5 Sundays in a row, so it just turned out great. But this year, obviously, because of COVID, that didn't happen. So yeah, I would say cooking is a big passion hobby. It's therapeutic. It's my therapy at the end of the day. So
Wow. That's fantastic.
Very nice. Thank you. And my next question would be more about pertaining to the future. And I know Pino had to have, he was going to have a previous engagement that he was going to be a part of at 5:30, so in about 20 minutes. So I don't know if just now was a disconnection or if he needed to go, but I'll absolutely get his plugs and information on in just a moment. But my next question for you all would be, what do you see for your future pertaining to writing or otherwise, either in future works that you have and that you're going to, continue with the genre that you write? Do you have plans for more books or more publications, or, are you trying to branch off into different aspects, different avenues, professionally, like in your career and job? Do you have goals that you're trying to attain? Just anything related to the future that you'd like to see happen or you're working towards, starting with Miss Laura Reagan.
Thanks again, Katelynn. Yeah, on any given day, I would answer this question differently. Meaning, sometimes I'm inspired to continue this genre because I want to continue to serve families, and that my next book might be in parenting sociology, which is a new niche that I hope to create inside of the parenting genre. But I also have other interests, one of them is it's kind of based on my life stage, is to help women become more not just mindful, but I guess empowered to build new lives at different stages of life, because so much of our emphasis in society is still motherhood, even though we're creative in that. How to do that second chapter, if you will. What happens when the kids fly the nest and you want to create in a different way. So I've also been thinking a little bit about that. I've been thinking a little bit about the recovery movement from alcoholism and drug abuse addiction, because my first career in nonprofit life was in substance abuse counseling. So I've been thinking a little bit about writing to parents in recovery. So I have a lot of different directions I'd like to go, and none of them is firmly decided yet, but it will definitely continue to morph and change and grow as I do, hopefully.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Beautiful.
I love it. And, just another thing to add in terms of any prospective writers or authors, you don't have to be confined to the one thing. You can branch and deal and have others and an idea, and maybe not, but this one, yes, and run with it. And, there's always potential and there's always possibilities, which is wonderful. But Dr. Clark von Heller, what can we see in the future for you, either in what you're trying to reach or any things that you're trying to create?
Well, Katelynn, thank you for that question, because back to Laura Lynn, I hear her growing. I mean, and that's what life is about. I mean, going and growing. And Katelynn, I really like this question because in my career, and of course, I'm retired from actively teaching and all that. And in COVID, that pretty well killed it too. But I'm trying to grow as well. And what I want to do now is to take these stories and make a children's book. And one of them is The Adventures of Chico the Donkey. It's a cute little story, and it's kind of drastic, and it's kind of like spooky. And so I had it illustrated a little bit when we published this book. I don't know, and it has a little bit here. And so, but I see this book becoming a children's coloring book. And so I'm thinking about that. And my music, hey, and I want to give our audience a little bit, one of my original songs. Is that okay? We are all the sons of God. We are one. We are children of the earth. We are one. We are daughters of the moon. We are one. We are sons of universe. We are one. Everybody, we are one. And it goes from there.
That's great. That's great.
Well, it's the oneness of humanity. We only have one earth. It doesn't matter the color of the skin. Look at what we can do when we create. And writing is the greatest way that we can create, because every idea that humans have ever had eventually worked their way into writing, even before writing was popularized 5,000 or 6,000 BC. And so because now we're writing about those ideas, so writing is everything. It really is.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I love that. Just from the musical show production that we got here. I love it. I love it so very much. Your personality is just so amazing. I'm having a great time.
I'm just kidding.
I'm having a great time. This is wonderful.
Us too.
But My next question, let me see. Yes. My next question for you all would be involving the messages or the goals of your work. Either, we've touched a bit on what the books are about and like the things that you would like to have from there. But in terms of anybody reading or sharing or consuming, what are you trying to accomplish through these books and these stories? I know, Laura Reagan, there's a specific goal in terms of the mother-daughter relationship and like parents in general and things. But, what kind of connection are you hoping to make with the readers or with the readers and other aspects? What's the goal that when people walk away from your book, you want them to have this in mind? Starting with Miss Laura Reagan.
Great. As most sociologists, I'm interested in equality, and helping the power disparity not only be expressed in a very conscious way, but to be mitigated, in a real way. So it's the goal of the book is so that they can use the communication skills that are offered to improve relationships, to truly hear one another and communicate from the heart. I talk about heart-to-heart communication versus defense mechanism to defense mechanism communication. So that would be the goal, is to apply those communication skills to improve relationships. Mm-hmm. And then I want to touch back on one thing, Katelynn, if you'd allow me. The goal of that new ebook on grant writing is to help authors and coaches or other creatives find the monies they need to sustain themselves while they're creating. And that was such an important part of my process, because it influenced how I wrote, when I wrote, what I wrote, because it had to be marketable for me, just because I was supporting a family, right? So I really couldn't spend time and energy on things that weren't, helping my family. And that's true of so many people in the Valley, that we live in a low income area. That's just the reality of it. And we don't get our fair share of recognition in terms of grant funding. So I wanted to take all that I had learned as a nonprofit manager and apply that to the art, the art making process, whether that be writing, coaching, or social artists as well. So the goal for that is to help writers and creators find dinero, find the money they deserve.
Exactly.
Very nice. Thank you. And Dr. Clark Von Heller, what are you trying to portray in your own writing and authorship and, that kind of aspect?
Well, I'm going to just tag something that Laura Lynn just said. We need to let young people like Katelynn and role models, let them know that there is monetization from writing. I mean, well, I'm just going to pan around. I mean, look at the library. I mean, think if every one of these books were just $20. I'm not advertising anything. I just thought that would be effective. Okay, I hope I don't lose my mic here. But just think, if any of those books were $20, there has to be thousands and thousands and thousands. And young people probably don't even think about monetization when it comes to writing. But children's books, Harry Potter, look what happened. I mean, we have to let them know that there is monetization. And even on YouTube, I had a student who, she was very shy, and when we asked them about hobbies and things, and so I thought she was very shy, and so I didn't push or anything. And so after the class, I told her, I said, oh, your hobby, you didn't want to talk about your hobby. She said, well, I'm embarrassed because I'm a YouTube makeup artist. I have a YouTube channel for makeup. I said, that's wonderful. Are you kidding? That's fantastic. And I asked, how many followers did she have? She had about 1,000 followers or subscribers. And so, I mean, it's a new world, and it's internet. It's, and so we've got to do that. I think I lost track of your question. What was it again?
You're good. It was like the message, like the goal that you want people to know, but that was good. That was wonderful. We're here to have conversations. We're here to delve into things, but the message and goal and things like that of your work.
They have to know there's an audience out there, and especially the how-to books. For example, this one, for the select audience that needs this worldwide, it's a good book. But if it's required reading or something from in a literature class or something, it would not work so we have to make sure that we know who our audience is, and then we can write to that audience the how-to books, and like Laura Lyles said, I mean, they can be very successful, and plus you're helping people at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you.
Very
So
good, very
I
good.
have
Dr.
about 2
Shane.
or 3. Yes, I have about 2 or 3 more questions before we can sign off and get those plugs. But I did want to ask, do you have any interesting or close to your heart stories, in your career as a writer and with your books and things? Either maybe it was an interaction with a reader or in the writing process, or you heard from someone, hey, I read your book and this, or I have your book and I learned this, or maybe even, that first time that first book, you held it in your hands for the first time and thought like, this is real, it's a thing. So starting with Ms. Laura Reagan, any close to your heart stories?
Absolutely, and it is real. It is a thing, and by holding your book, there's nothing like it, right? It's a baby. You're giving birth to this baby, and you're sharing it with the world, and it's very much like that, And so I was excited about that. But probably one of the best stories I have is I heard from a psychologist that used my book in therapy with a young person who was suicidal. And she felt like her mom did not understand her. And she said the client read it from front cover to back and started using those skills in the relationship, found her voice, expressed it. And she said the improvement in that young lady was night and day. So, wow, to hear that your words, I mean, see that it just makes me want to cry right now again, because to know that how hard it is to get it out of you can change a life like that, can help pull a young person from the brink, is worth everything.
That's
right. Whether I sell another book or not, it was totally worth it to write it for that reason.
That's right. What a beautiful testimony.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing. Thank you. And Dr. Clark Von Heller, any interesting or close to your heart stories in your own experiences?
Well, I think this one's interesting. In this little book of fiction which I wrote this short story called The Return, and it's the return of, guess who? Jesus, because Jesus never would return. So I said, I'm just going to write him back, and he heals the whole world and all of that. Well, it has CNN. It has kind of a little drama in there. It has the President of the United States. It has the Queen of England. In other words, the people at the time. And the next day, and I had my students to read it. And so at South Texas College. And the next class, which would be 2 days later, this one guy ran in and said, Sir, did this really happen? My mother read it, and she's a Catholic, and she says she didn't know about it. And I went, oh my Lord. I said, no, it's all fiction. Are you sure? But it says blah, 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 blah. I said, no, all fiction. She was very worried as a Roman Catholic that she had never heard about the return of Jesus, and they missed it. Okay. So anyway, so I felt very good about it.
That's a nice anecdote. And I think it's, when you always when you make an impact that profound, that like you read and you're like, oh my good, you change perspectives and ways of thinking.
Yeah. I know he read it because, and even his mother. Yeah.
That's so funny. But I think 2 more questions before we sign off, and one will be a little bit more on the fun side of, different, separate from writing, just a little bit more to get to know you, and then one deep question, and then we can sign off and say goodbye. If I were to meet you on the street, I just see you walking, we're walking around the RGV, I'm like, hey, hi, how are you? How's it going? What are 3 things that I would never find you without? This could be pre-pandemic, because now it's the mask and the hand sanitizer and things. But if I were to find you on the street, what are 3 things that you would always have on you, kind of like defining items, starting with Laura Reagan?
Oh gosh. obviously the phone, right? Because I live with the phone. It's just part of our lives these days. And I have a new grandbaby, so I would always have pictures of the new baby. A laptop and a journal. I just carry that in my satchel all the time. Because you never know when you're going to get the next good book idea, right? So those are the things that are kind of always with me.
Very nice. Thank you. And for Dr. Clark von Heller, what are 3 things that I could never find you without?
Hey, I cheated because I had time to think about it while Laura Lynn was giving hers. So that was cool. I'm going to cheat. Definitely the cell phone, and but I'm going to be esoteric in the other 2 because I couldn't think. I'm not that consistent. But honestly, I smile a lot. So usually I bring a smile. And number 2 is I'm usually singing or humming. And I know this is crazy, and I'm not trying to be too crazy, but I sing Christmas songs all year. When I'm super happy, going into Walmart, whatever, joy to the world, it's Monday night, just anything to make them laugh, so those 3 things.
I love it, and I am one of the oh my gosh, Christmas fanatic 100%. It's October 25th. We're 2 months away. I mean, I've got Christmas music. Our Christmas tree never leaves the living room corner. We're here. We're celebrating. It's Christmas isn't
cute.
it's not a time of year. It's a state of mind. It's in
There
which
you
you
go.
live and breathe and exist.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. But my final question for you all today is, for aspiring writers or authors, either authors in general, writers in general, or maybe for someone who wants to write for your genre, what advice or, words of wisdom would you offer? Maybe something you've learned along the way, something you wish you knew before you started, little nuggets of wisdom that you may have. What advice would you offer to aspiring writers and authors, starting with Miss Laura Reagan?
Well, I would say grow the audience first, or at least as you're writing, grow the audience. And we have so many tools at our disposal to do that these days with social media, what Katelynn's put together with writers, conferences, talk to writers, commune with writers, use book coaches. That's something that helped me a lot also. And then get your ideas out there. Be brave. So many times we stop ourselves in our heads. Oh, that's not an original idea. It's not worth putting down. I don't think anybody's going to read that. We edit ourselves and we don't give ourselves the chance. So I would say write it, get it out there, put out quality. Don't get me wrong. I'm not for people just publishing for the sake of publishing, but be brave enough to, at least in writers' circles, have your things edited or pay for an editor to help it be of quality, but take the risk to get it out there. If it's in you, it's worth saying, it's worth writing.
I love that, and especially the be brave. Be brave. Just go for it. Do it. It's gonna stay in here, and it's gonna stay up here until you put it out into the world. That's when you make those impacts and those connections and that influence. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Dr. Clark von Heller, any words of advice or wisdom to aspiring writers and authors?
Well, I like this. In my writing classes from years past until last year, I always had a motto. We had a mantra every single class. One who speaks only to oneself, but one who writes speaks to the whole world.
Amen.
And I would ask them, are you speaking to yourself or are you speaking to the world? And so that, I like that little mantra. Yeah. If you can speak, you can write. And writing writing is an artificial skill. Listening and speaking, we have 4 language skills. 2 of those are natural, listening and speaking, and 2 of those are artificial, and those are reading and writing. And writing is the loftiest of those skills, which are not natural. They're creative.
Love that. Thank you, Dr. Clark.
End of preaching. End of preaching.
No, I love that.
I love it. That was was beautiful. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And we did have a comment coming in for yourself, Dr. Clark, with Ro Martinez Jr. says, Dr. Clark, I empathize in that I'm consistently humming. Not necessarily Christmas songs, though.
Hey,
Music,
Raul,
humming.
that is too cool. I remember you, Raul. You are wonderful. And you still owe me essay number 2 from 2016. No, I'm just kidding. Love you, Raul. Love you, Raul. Keep writing.
Well, thank you so very much. This was so fun. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties on my end, but this was great conversation. So much insight, so much to grab, great content. This was so very fun. And this is a wonderful, wonderful finale to The Right Crowd. And for everyone watching on Facebook and YouTube, thank you so very much for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your comments. And we can sign off with final goodbyes from our panelists here. But before we do that, jumping into the panelists here, I would like to speak on Mr. Pino Shah, World Heritage photographer, in that he is with his 7 books that are available as a free download right now on Google Play. If you search for Pino Shah. And if folks have any questions or comments, you can email him at pino@artbypino.com. And the printed versions of his book are available on artbypino.com, as well as Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And his ebooks are available in 70 countries on every ebook platform. That is incredible. So a huge thank you again to Pino Shah. You can find him at Art by Pino. All of the information that I just shared. Very impressive, very wonderful, and a big thank you for being a panelist here today. And beginning with Miss Laura Reagan, any final goodbyes, departing words, and where can we find you after this with social media and things?
Once again, thank you to fellow writers listening. Write. Be brave and write. Thank you, Katelynn, for hosting this. It was a joy to be a part of your clausura. And I am just very grateful for the work you've done to foster the writing community. And you can find me on Amazon, How to Raise Respectful Parents. You can also purchase it through Barnes & Noble's online. The Spanish version hit Target, believe it or not, Target.com and Walmart.com.
Wow.
So that's kind of exciting.
Wow, that's big.
I know. So that's fun. And then I'd like to turn folks to my website, lauralreagan.com. You can get the book about funding your writing with grants through that website as well. And then helpful hints to parents of teens for better communication and relationships is on that website as well. And I'm sorry, I forgot to say, you can download the first 2 chapters of the book free on the website also.
Neat. That's neat.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. And congratulations on Target and Walmart availability for the Spanish version. Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's
very big. And Dr. Clark von Heller, any parting words, and where can we find you after this?
Yes, I'm very jealous of Laura Lynn. I'm going to take my little book and I'm going to toss it into Target today. I want to, my email is clarkvonheller@yahoo.co.uk, because I used to live in England, and so we left it that way. And so clarkvonheller@yahoo.co.uk. I would like to terminate a little bit of inspiration to this beautiful audience that I know is watching. And this is also one of our mantras that my lit classes said every time. Literature is the logos of the soul, a veritable celebration of the imagination and spirit, and all that is good within mankind.
Nice. Thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome.
I love
Thank
that.
you guys.
Thank you so
Marvin, Mr. Shah, everybody. It was so much fun. It was absolutely a blast. What a blessing.
This was a wonderful event.
This whole podcast. I know it was very successful, and we cannot wait to see what you're going to come up with next. It's going to be fantastic.
That's right. I echo that. One of the mantras I use with families all the time, and Dr. Clark reminded me of that, was it's never too late. because every interaction counts. And
everybody.
it's never too late as authors, to write.
Keep writing. Keep writing.
Exactly.
I think there might have been a bit of internet interference, but I know
We
Laura
did it!
Reagan, you were speaking on the Yes.
That's okay. That's okay. It worked.
Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Katelynn.
everyone.
Bye-bye.